Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. It is another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. I'm David Guthrow, and today I have the pleasure of being here with Bob Wiele, the CEO of One Smart World. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, David. Great to be here.
So, Bob, one of the things that you're passionate about is helping people think more effectively together, either individually or collectively. So maybe you could just tell our listeners, how did you come to this as an important area for you to build a business on?
Good question. I think it goes back, David. When I was a university graduate, I got a job working in adult education up in Elliott Lake. And I had a bunch of people, all of whom were older than me, in grade 3 to grade 7, all adults. And then I went up and opened up the first full-time school for adult Eskimos up in Inuit now in Baffin Island. And it was the same kind of people who kind of missed out on the educational thing. And I was astonished by how smart they were. And it was like, a white middle-class guy from Montreal, from McGill, going out there and saying, oh my gosh, there's so much talent out here. And that kind of led me down the path to a master's degree in adult education. And then when I did the National Coaching Certification Program curriculum, we built a curriculum that's had over 1 million people take the course in sport. And again, helping people think through hard problems, understand how other people think, and then come up with ways of working together to come up with solutions that would work for them. So that's kind of a long answer, but that's basically where it came from. Learning from people who were much smarter than I would have thought, had lots of capability, and if I could contribute to that, let's go.
And so, I understand you've put together a system that helps people sort of codify thinking, but it's kind of crazy times out there today, Bob. So why today more than ever is it important for people to be able to think together more effectively? What's going on that requires this? What's the question to what your system happens to be the answer to?
The question right now is, I think, as AI and relentless change undermines everybody, makes people feel anxious and worried, what becomes more important is HI, human intelligence. And human intelligence used to be, you win on Jeopardy, how much you know. And now it's much more about how you like to think, problem solve, collaborate, lead. Are you empathetic in your listening? All those are the kinds of new skills. And so if you have those kinds of skills, as opposed to the academic stuff, you'll be much more likely to get ahead.
Okay.
So that was the problem. How do we help people figure out how to get beyond what they like to do, learn what they need to do so they can be critical thinkers, effective analytical thinkers, critical thinkers, good people to be with?
Well, I certainly think there's a very good case to be made that we have to be thinking better and thinking faster these days. The pace just keeps getting faster and faster and faster, and the tolerance for making mistakes and the cost of making mistakes is so dear these days. So, Bob, could you tell me a little bit about your system, your approach? How do people learn to think more effectively together?
Okay. Well, back in 2000, that was the question we asked. How do people think, and how can they think better together? So after borrowing a lot of money, mortgaging my house again, putting an excellent team together, we said, what if we could map out how people like to think? Are there mindsets and strategies out there that we can nail that are simple enough that the average person could learn? Then could we put it into a system that people could understand themselves? So we built an instrument called the 4DI, which maps how you like to think based on an array of mindsets and strategies.
And sorry, Bob, just for our listener, 4DI, that the D must stand for something, and the I, what's that stand for? What's the acronym mean?
So it means 4 dimensions inventory. So the dimensions are creativity, creative thinking and intuition, understanding, analytical thinking and compassion, decision-making, critical thinking and values-based decision-making, and then what we call personal spirit is the 4th dimension.
Okay, that's helpful. 4DI, just now people know what that's about when you're talking about it. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
Oh, that's good. That's what we did. We built the instrument. We tested it out. We won a big job with the government of BC. We rated number 1 in the world out of 100 instruments that they looked at. And they were looking at new ways to train leaders to think better and work smarter with different people.
Okay. Okay. So, so maybe you could just talk a little bit more about the model and those different elements. Then I want to explore how people actually use it, how they
Mhm.
learn it, how they use it, and how they can really, optimize the value of it back in their organization. So
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more about the model itself.
So the model itself came out of a couple of places. One was Robert Sternberg's work on successful intelligence, and another was a fellow in the UK, Jerry Rhodes, we worked with. And they all said we use our minds for three things: coming up with ideas, creative thinking, understanding what's going on, analytical thinking, and understanding
Mhm.
people, and also we need to make decisions. And so we took that and then we added a fourth dimension called personal spirit, which is that resilience, the belief in yourself, sense of self efficacy, all that kind of stuff, and built that into the model and then created a research process to test out and norm it so people could understand, compared to other people, how they like to think. And what comes out is I like to think in a different way than you. Most people don't think like I do or you do, right? And so if we understand that and appreciate that, your thinking plus my thinking plus her thinking, we can start to make good work together if we understand where each other's coming from, where we each add value, and how we can put that together into some kind of process.
So I just want to jump ahead here a little bit because there may be people out there that are familiar with some of the models that are very popular out there today, like DISC, like Insights, like Luminous Spark, like True Colors, and things like that. So how is this model different from those?
Excellent question. Those models tend to look at traits and types. Right? You're a this or you're a that. You're one letter, or in Myers Briggs, you're four letters, or you're so that tends to look at those kinds of things where we look at states of mind, which I can shift from one state of mind to another. So ours are more learnable mindsets and skill sets, as opposed to labeling people, which I think to some extent limits them. I'm a this or I'm a that. So we focused on learnable skills that people can get beyond their preferences to develop capacity in so they can be more effective. So I'm effective if I can do what I like to do, but I'm more effective if I can also master different types of thinking that match the person I'm with or the task I've got to do. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, it does. I used to use a different model many years ago before I discovered
Yeah.
the 40i. And the metaphor that I used to use is that, you know, to be effective, you have to have the right kind of thinking in the right kind of room. So for example, if I need to be building something, I'm much better off doing that in the garage than in the bedroom. If I'm trying to cook something, I'm much better doing that in the kitchen than wherever. And it's to me, it was kind of like understanding what room you're in, what the task is, and then
Yeah.
try to get your thinking in the right room so you're going to be effective. And especially when it's a common task with other people, to get everyone into the same room together.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talk about the right thing at the right time, and so we use a traffic light, David, to make it really simple. So when we were building this, we said, what if we had a mnemonic device that somebody from 5 years old to 105 years old would know right around the world? So the traffic light is a universal common language. So when the red light is on, we all know what to do. And if we don't stop, we're going to run into each other. When the yellow light goes on, we know what to do. We slow down, we look around, what's happening, and when the green light goes on, we all step on the gas. Whether we're on a in a motorcycle, we're walking, or in a Lamborghini, we all know how to behave. So we said, what if we could build a way of understanding how people like to think, and recognize that when the light changes and we're all together, we do different kinds of work. So green is for creative thinking. We all are doing that. And we're in the green room, and all we're doing is generating ideas. We're not evaluating them or anything else. In the yellow room, we're looking at data. We're listening to each other, trying to understand what's going on. And in the red room, we're saying, okay, pitter patter, let's get at her. Based on all the stuff in the yellow room, the data, the information, the connection, all the ideas from the green room, what are we going to do? So we could be in all, we go from one room to another, but it can be the same group, just
Okay.
doing different work in each room.
So I presume that people have preferences for the way they like to look at information. Like, for example, my wife is very much about making decisions, and she'll say something like, where should we go for dinner tonight? And I hear that as, oh, there's all kinds of possibilities. We go to here, 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 here. No, she wants, let's make a decision. What are we going to do? Right. So that the same question I hear through a different set of lenses,
Mm.
or someone else might be thinking about, well, here's the menu for this restaurant. Here's the menu for that restaurant, and things like that. And so we have our preferences, but seems to me the value is then deciding together, in spite of our preferences, how do we need to think to be more effective given this task? Is that appropriate?
You got it. And because you're reading her well, and she's reading you well. She knows you're high in green. You're a very creative thinker, and you're full of lots of options and ideas, as I am. But when it's time to go out for supper, we need to narrow that down right now and say we're leaving in half an hour. Do you want to go to the Thai restaurant, or do you want to go to the Mexican restaurant? And it's like, okay, let's go to the Mexican. As opposed to, well, I've got a list of 47 restaurants within a 2-mile drive, and why don't we look at all those? And she's going, David, I'm hungry. What do you want? Which one do you want to go?
Yeah. And without stepping back to say what kind of thinking do we need, it can cause a little bit of tension. But let's look at. There's probably a lot of people listening to this that are in organizations. So let's take something that's fairly common, a common task, which would be strategic planning. So how might we use this system of intentional thinking in approaching a strategic planning process that may not happen in one meeting, but may occur over time?
Okay. Good question. One of the things that makes our system different from the conventional personality type tools you mentioned earlier is the same language can be used to map people and their preferences for thinking and also map processes. So if you take the metaphor of a green light and strategy, if we were having a strategy session, we could color code the process, right? So you could we're going to start off the strategy session with a bit of yellow, kind of lay the table for here's the information we have to deal with. And we're going to get to red. What's the crux of the problem we need to address together and define that? And then we move into green. What are all the different options and ideas for dealing with that critical issue? And then move to yellow to organize that into options and packages, and then move to red to make a decision. So we've been using this for years in that way. Uh, it, it it gets it gets different people on the same page quite quickly. It you when the green light goes on, we behave differently than when the yellow or red light goes on. So we know how to behave. So it streamlines the process. And when you come out the other side, there's a much greater degree of ownership because I've had a chance to contribute at each phase of the way, deferring in some cases to people who are better at this or more effective at that. And they will defer to me when I can add value. So
So I'm thinking back to something that I heard a number of years ago about there was an organization that was trying to maximize or optimize one of their resources, and so the person that was running this process, and they'd actually been trained in something that sounds very similar to this, and said, so we're going to have a multiple part planning session. And the first piece, we want people to come together who to apply their green thinking. And so they knew what the model meant at that point. And they took a diagonal slice across the organization. It says, what we're looking for here is how you think, not what necessarily what your expertise is. So we want to gather a whole pile of people together, get some really diverse opinions, and just generate ideas. And I said, and by the way, we are not making decisions today. So if you're going to get frustrated by coming out of this meeting without a decision, you probably shouldn't come because this meeting is strictly about green and gathering ideas. And then what they said is, we're going to gather a number of people that are very good with their analytical skills. They're going to take these ideas and go away and put some data around them, gather some information. And then we're going to have a third meeting when we come back. We're going to bring some people from the first two meetings. But the purpose of this meeting is to say, given all the ideas, given the understanding, what are we going to do? So we're making decisions today. So it's not a time to say, oh, I just thought of one more idea. No, no.
Mhm.
But they all understood the process and the type of thinking that was required and got a tremendous amount of work done, highly engaging. People were committed to the decision. It was amazing. It saved them tons of money. Well, in terms of time, but also optimize the value of the asset that they're trying to get rid of, not get rid of, but sell.
yeah, I remember that I remember they used the data analytics from the 4DI to pick off who are people high in green to come to this phase of the meeting. And then the same thing to put different configurations together. And if I recall correctly, that added $40 million to the bottom line when they sold that property.
Wow.
I remember getting that data. It was quite, and all it was, and they were in the oil and gas industry. All it was extracting intelligence out of the organization in a very systematic and deliberate way, in a simple process to come up with ideas that people at the top had never thought of before or come up with. But by getting that collective group, as you mentioned, in different phases, different configurations, produced remarkable results. I mean, in a sense, that is the heart of our work.
Mhm.
If you get different people who think in different ways together using a disciplined process with psychological safety along the way so people feel comfortable, and then rules of engagement. When the red light goes on, you behave differently in a meeting because you're arguing and debating than when the green light goes on, where you're just generating options and ideas and looking at future possibilities. And the problem in most places is you mix those up because there is no systematic way of keeping different people onto the same page in a process.
Well, I've certainly seen that in some of my client work where it's time to come up with some ideas, and some people are going boom, 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 idea, idea, idea. And there's others who say good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, and totally
Yeah,
shut it down from
yeah,
a process standpoint because they're using different types of thinking for what should be a common task.
yeah. I saw a fact today from a company called Atlassian who do work in collaboration. And the fact that the number they had was in the Fortune 500 companies, there was a waste of 25 billion work hours because of ineffective collaboration. And I would argue, David, in this day and age, if human intelligence is the differentiator, because everyone's got the same AI tools, right? If that's the differentiator, it's a leadership challenge to understand how people think and then put in place processes to optimize that asset. And if you've got 25 billion hours wasted, and you've got engagement rates of around 34%, it's not the talent that's the problem.
Right.
It's how do I optimize that talent and how do I map it? That's what we do, and how we put people together in teams, give them a simple common language, understanding of each other, and you go from forming to performing much more quickly.
So let's say someone's interested in this, Bob, and we can look at it from a personal perspective, also from an organizational perspective. So, if I was interested in learning more or understanding my thinking preferences, how would I go about doing that?
There's usually two ways. One is someone goes on and just wants to purchase a 40i, and our new system was just released in the last couple of weeks, and you get a complete report interactively, um, three different printout reports from a page to 24 pages. But you can go online at any time. There's my coach to help you build your skills. Most of our work, David, has come in through companies that are looking for a better way. So they want to develop leaders. They want to develop, they want to build high performance teams. You've got a new leader taking over, wants to bring something new in. There's a cross functional team we put together for a task. And so the company would come to us and say, or to you or to our colleagues, this is what we want to do. We want to take our teams and people to the next level. Can we use your system?
Okay, and that's something that they go to online. Like I'll put all this information in the program notes if people are
Yeah, yeah.
interested. So if there was just an individual who was interested, like let's say it was a CEO leader and who, it's not always easy to get good feedback from your folks about how you're thinking, but wanted to have a different perspective on
Mhm.
their leadership. Is that something that they could go online and take that profile and then use that coaching system you talked about?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's interesting watching the impact on leadership and leadership teams. We've done a lot of work in that area, and it's a real insight in terms of what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, it's a like, are the tools I'm using right for the people I'm leading? And if they're not, how do I adapt so I understand how you like to operate, how she likes to operate, how she likes to operate, so we can get so I can fine tune my behavior to match where the other person is coming from, and then my added value is, and you need to think about this, and here's a way to do that.
So, one of the things that I've seen with some other models that where it's not so much about how you shift from one mode to another is that someone will come out and say, "Well, I'm an introvert, and if you want to get along with me, this is what you're going to have to do," or whatever might happen to be as a justification for one's behavior. And especially the higher up you get, I've seen this where, well, Now I know, and I'll let you know what I'm about. If you went along with me, this is what you have to do. And this is quite a different approach,
It's
right?
very different.
It's not
Yeah.
about being stuck. It's about being versatile and flexible according to the needs of the task.
Yeah. I mean, McKinsey called adaptability the number one in demand skill in the workforce today. And I would argue, Darwin was actually said it's not the strongest who survive, it's the most adaptable. And I would argue that adaptability is a key form of intelligence. That if things are moving, if you choose to stay the same, you're going to get left behind real quick. I really, as AI gets smarter, we know AI is getting smarter all the time. If you're not also working on getting smarter, you're going to get left behind. And so now I am who I am. Well, that's great, but you're going to be left behind and left out. And I think not today, not tomorrow, but very quickly. I think organizations are looking for people who are versatile, who can move quickly, who can pivot. And when it's time to do critical thinking in the red zone, I know how to do that. I may not like it, but I know how to do it. I'm good enough at it. I'm like a decathlete. My strength is running, but I've got to master the throwing and jumping events because if I don't, I can't compete.
So you brought up AI, and I'm just thinking about. I was at a webinar just yesterday about how to use AI for building a business and things like that, and the importance of like using, let's just say ChatGPT. It could be any tool, but priming it or what the inquiry is. And it seems to me that depending upon what I was looking for as an output, I could prime it by saying, so if I say something like, what are some ideas or possibilities about X? So that's kind of like a green question looking for ideas. I could say, what's some information about this to deepen my understanding, going out and getting that information, then asking for references where I got that information from. Or it could be, I've got all of this information here. What's the best thing I could do given the resources I have available? That'd be like a red inquiry, a red prompt, a red priming.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking that would be really, really useful.
Well, that's bang on. At the end of the day, our system is based on what we call strategies. These are precision thinking tools. So there's four of them in creative thinking. There's four of them in critical thinking. So what you're describing is each of these strategies can act as a prime
Mhm, mhm,
or
mhm,
for an AI tool. So, and we use this all the time. I need some background information. Can you summarize this research? Um, can you can you take this information and come up with 5 conclusions, which is a red question, right? I'm priming it to come to conclusion. Validate.
mhm.
Can you give me proof and evidence why each of the conclusions are correct?
Wow.
So it
Powerful.
becomes so our stuff is like precision cognitive tools to help you get what you need to get from yourself or from another person. So if I know exactly what the task is, I can turn to Mary. Mandy told me a story today about one of her clients. And a boss came in who was young and inexperienced. She didn't know very much, new to the organization, and she lived off Validate, which is a red critical thinking tool. And she asked these kinds of questions and questioned this woman over and over to the point where she got disengaged. She lost trust in her. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm at a very high level. This is not how we should be spending our time,
Mhm,
you know? And you think of that in organizations all the time now. Somebody coming in using the wrong priming tool,
mhm.
because priming is to pull information out, right? The kind of information you want. So these strategies are designed for that. So whether it's AI or human intelligence, the more precise you can be around the cognitive and emotional strategies you can use, the more effective you're going to be.
It's as you're saying that, and you just kind of brought up Mandy, who I believe works with you and may in fact be your partner
That's
in life,
correct. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is good. Um, I'm thinking who could use this particular approach, and it seems to be you talked about in an organization. So maximize the talent in your room, getting people aligned or in your organization, things like that. But also people who are coaches and are coaching leaders and executives, and basically anybody to help coach their thinking to get a better result. Does that? Is this available to coaches as well? This
Yeah.
system?
One of our primary team in the UK have a sport background,
Hmm.
a sport coaching background, and they work with executives in many organizations, and they bring the sport performance orientation and use the 40I as a primary coaching tool to understand here's what you like to think, but for you to be effective and you need to be more versatile and expand your capabilities. And here's a way of doing that in with some precision that it's manageable. So look, they've been extremely effective in many organizations using this as a coaching tool. So that's a really good example because you're starting with from data.
Mhm.
So I can still like what I like, but if
Right.
I work on this, I'm not going to change my preferences. But now I've added this to my portfolio of skills.
So another metaphor that came to me is that of being a golfer. That if my my favorite club is the putter, I'm probably, and I don't like the driver. My game is probably going to improve if I get better at using my driver. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to like it anymore, but if I'm
Yeah.
better at it, I'm going to be more effective. So being able to make the distinctions you have between what my preferences are and what my capabilities and skills are to be able to move from one preference to another.
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
cool.
yeah, that's at the heart of our work. I mean, the other tools tend to reinforce I'm a this or I'm a that. They're more like a mirror.
Mm.
Ours is more like a portal. This is the way through to understanding how to be more effective by doing things that you may not initially like. But if you look at sport, David, every high performance athlete doesn't rely on one thing.
Right.
They work on their game consistently to get better at the things that they need to get better at. And I think that metaphor if they use from coaching in sport is a really very helpful one. And one of my sons at one point in time was a golf pro, and he can hit the ball 300 yards. The strength people would say, go to the driving range.
Mhm. Mhm.
The smart golf coach would say, go to the green. You got to work on your putter and your short irons because an extra 10 yards on your drive will not affect your score. So know yourself, grow your skills. That's right at the heart of our work. Know yourself. That's terrific. If you really want to get better, work on your game.
So, Bob, this all sounds very good. And I just want to take a moment to ask a slightly different question. What, if any, are some cautionary notes that you might offer, or warnings, or don't do this with respect to using this system? Anything come to mind?
Um, no.
What?
No, it was designed to be a simple tool that can help people understand themselves and recognize what they need to work on. The the danger could be to say this is a be all and end all. It's a tool. Like any tool, you can use it to cut a steak or stab someone in the back, but it's still a tool, right? So I would say use this as a way in to self-development and understanding other people. But it's a tool. It's not the end game. So
Well,
and we found the more adaptable you are in different situations, the more effective you're going to be. And so when we use it in meetings, it's a way to plan a meeting to get to red, to come to a decision. And our key element, which I haven't talked about, is personal spirit, which is at the heart of all our work. Your resilience, your outlook, your sense of control, and your willingness to take initiative. Because if you do that as a leader, your people feel empowered. They feel they can take action. They come to work saying, I can make a difference, and you don't get that 25 billion hours of wasted work because of ineffective collaboration, or you don't get the 66% degree of disengagement that we currently have in the workplace. So those are the keys to success. Unlock the minds, hearts, and spirits of your people, and you can get remarkable results. And the 40i and toolkit is a way in. There's many ways in. We've chosen this way as a particularly effective way.
so it seems to me like I've been reading some of the writings that Ryan Holiday does about the Stoic philosophers and things like that, and not getting locked into something. The ego is the enemy is one of his books, and so
Hmm.
one cautionary note that I need to give to myself, and I'd offered others as well, is misinterpreting what the system is about and building a wall around my thinking preferences that's very narrow and saying this is it, that like it's a strength, because I think that's really where it's a danger, that it misinterprets
Yeah.
what the system is about. So it's like keep those, like you may have some preferences, but keep those, as a very soft boundary, maybe just a line on the sand that you can step over, but not something that's impossible for other people to enter in with you or for you to exit to be with them.
Yeah, we had one of the best people we ever worked with was extremely creative. She worked for a community college, and when her new boss came in. Her new boss said, I want you to do the yellow and red work. I want spreadsheets. I want reports. And she said, it's not what I do. And the boss said, if you're going to work for me, you got to do that. And it didn't work out. She had to leave the organization. Just as you said, she said, no, I'm a this, I'm not a that. No, the boss said, well, in this particular circumstance, I need you to add this to your portfolio of skills. I know you're great at that, but what I need from you is this. And I think you're bang on. If you can't be flexible and you can't adapt to those people or situations or tasks that you're dealing with, you're going to be in trouble. So what we do is say, here's a way to do that. Here, and where do I need to be right now? What do I need to do? A manual override, close down what I like to do and say, in this particular circumstance, I got to do this right now. Because if I don't, I'm going to be ineffective and cause damage.
So this has been very, very interesting to me and hopefully to others as well. And, with respect to all of this, reflect back on some of the work of Carol Dweck on growth mindset. And this seems to be a really good opportunity to hold a growth mindset about my ability to think and expand my capability to be flexible and adaptable and ultimately get better results in the organization that I'm with. So, I would like to thank you so much for being here with me today, Bob, and sharing some of your thoughts and insights, a little bit about the 4DI, and hopefully encourage people to want to find out a little bit more. And I will certainly put some places to connect with that in the program notes. So Bob Wiele, CEO of the One Smart World organization, which is changing the way people work and think together. Thank you very much for being here with me today.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure and a delight.
So let's come on back next week, folks, and get some different perspectives, some fresh perspectives on something totally different. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.